Shalom everyone, and thank you for joining me again in studying of Parashat Shoftim, accepting uncertainty. The Torah describes many things in our Parsha, but one of the most interesting things that is so relevant to our times is dealing with uncertainties. And the Torah states the following: לא יימצא בך מעביר בנו וביתו באש, קוסם קסמים, מעונן ומנחש ומכשף, וחובר חבר ושואל אוב ועידעוני ודורש אל המתים. Basically, the Torah prohibits any way of trying to tell the future. You cannot go to anyone, man or a woman, a sorcerer, a witch, and all sorts of other people who try to predict the future. You can't do that. Why? כי תועבת השם כל עושה אלה. It's an abomination. ובגלל התועבות האלה, and because of those abominations, השם אלוקיך מוריש אותם מפניך. All the other non-Jews, they go to those people, but you don't. You can't. You need to believe in God. תמים תהיה עם השם אלוקיך. And we will explain what does it mean, תמים תהיה עם השם אלוקיך. You should be naive, or you should be complete or wholesome with Hashem, your God. כי הגויים האלה אשר אתה יורש אותם, because those non-Jews, those other nations, that you come to the land of Israel to inherit them, אל מעוננים, אל קוסמים ישמעו. They will go to all those people who try to predict the future. ואתה, and you, לא כן נתן לך השם אלוקיך. You have a different path. Hashem provided you with something else, which is, נביא מקרבך מאחיך כמוני, יקים לך השם אלוקיך, אליו תשמעון. But rather, you should follow the prophet, like me, says Moshe, that Hashem will appoint, and you should listen to him. So let's pause here for a second, let's digress here for a second, and let's try to analyze this narrative. Basically, the Torah addresses one of the most modern issues in modern times, which is dealing with uncertainties. We as people, and especially Western people, 21st century people, we like that everything is planned, programmed. We have a schedule, we know exactly what to do, where are we going to be, who are we going to meet, what are we going to eat, what are we going to talk about. We need it to be planned. And when things go out of order, when things become not that clear, when there is a lot of vague rather than clarity, when there is uncertainty, we become afraid. Everyone would like to know the future. Or maybe not. The narrative is very specific and very clear. You cannot go to any other sorcerers, witches, all kind of people who try to predict the future, because the commandment is, you need to be tamim im Hashem Elokecha. You should be, as I said, let's say, translate it now, as naive, just to follow God without any hesitations. However, there is a problem. Because if the narrative will stop there, I will understand it. Don't be like the other nations that try to predict the future. You should just follow God. The problem with this narrative is that immediately after that, it says, again, because all the other nations, they go to all those sorcerers and witches and future people who try to predict the future, but you should follow the prophet. And you should listen to him. But just 1 second. The prophet also, from time to time, tells the future. So what will be the difference? And what should we do when there is no prophet? There is no Navi. So let's try to understand. What is the message that the Torah tried to tell us? And we will start with Rashi. Rashi, the French commentator from the 11th century in France, says the following: התהלך עמו בתמימות. What does it mean, tamim tihye? That you shall be tamim, let's say naive. So Rashi says, התהלך עמו בתמימות. Walk with God בתמימות. So he does not explain it yet, but now he says something very interesting. ותצפה לו. What does it mean, לצפות? So לצפות is really, the English translation will be to anticipate. So basically Rashi says, you should walk with God and just wait in anticipation of what will come. ולא תחקור אחר העתידות. And you should not try to investigate, to really dig into what will be in the future. אלא כל מה שיבוא עליך, but everything that comes your way, קבל בתמימות. Accept with תמימות. ואז תהיה עמו, and then you will be with him, ולחלקו. And you will be part of his share, part of his group, part of God's group. Let's try to understand this very short line, but very insightful. Rashi basically says what? If you go to the pasuk that says, really it's in the middle of the narrative, Tamim tihye im Hashem Elokecha. So im, the word im in Hebrew, translate into English with. So therefore Rashi says you walk with God. So first and foremost, what does it mean to walk with God? How can you walk with God? So obviously the answer is that you follow God's path. You feel God's presence in your life. You understand that you are walking together in your journey. Now, sometimes you walk with God and you really feel and you sense His dwelling presence in your life. But sometimes you feel that some things come upon you and you don't understand it. And your world collapses in front of your eyes. What do you do then? Says Rashi, you go with God and you don't know exactly where is He going to take you. This is part of the uncertainty that God wants you to have. God expects of you to walk with Him, to follow His path, to do the right things, and then when things come your way, just accept it. Accept the fact that, you know what? I don't know why it happened to me, but not only that, I don't know where it is going to lead me in the future. And then if you will be able to live your life like that, which means to live your life with that type of uncertainty, but knowing and trusting that God really would lead you to the promised land, then you will be part of this exclusive club of God's followers. That's basically what Rashi says. It's very hard to accept it in a way. Because everything that comes our way, we try to understand, to give it some kind of an explanation, to make it something that will be rational, something that we can relate to. But Rashi says, this is not what you need to do. Accept it. Know that you will not understand. Know that there is a plan, there is a divine plan that you are maybe not privy to, but you continue to walk with God. I will just throw one example. You know, Abraham, when God told him that he shall leave his country and his land and his birthplace and go to a land that God will show him, immediately he began his journey with uncertainty. And then when he gets to the land, he obviously cannot buy land. And then there is what? There is a famine in the land of Israel. Abraham needs to go to Egypt. Abraham does not question God. Hey, 1 second, you told me to leave this place, to go to the land of Israel. Now I need to leave. And what exactly do you want from me? Abraham can live with uncertainty. And we, as Abraham's descendants, says Rashi, you need to walk with God. It's hard. It's difficult. It's challenging. But that is the meaning of Tamim Tihye im Hashem Elokecha. Let's learn a story, a well-known story, with King Saul and the prophet Samuel. This is one of the epics in Saul's life and really brings to our discussion the difficulty to deal with uncertainty. ויקבצו פלישתים, ויבואו ויחנו בשונם, ויקבוץ שאול את כל ישראל ויחנו בגלבוע. King Saul and the Philistines had many wars and many battles, but this one is a difficult one. וירא שאול את מחנה פלישתים, ויירא, ויחרד ליבו מאוד. This is basically towards the end of King Saul's reign over the people of Israel. So he looks at מחנה פלישתים, he looks at the encamping of the Philistines, and he is afraid. He is terrified. ויחרד ליבו מאוד, his heart is trembling. וישאל שאול בהשם, so Saul went to the Cohen to ask the Urim v'Tumim, the breastplate, to get some kind of an answer. Would I win? ולא ענהו השם. Hashem did not answer King Saul because he was upset with him. He was angry with him. King Saul killed 80 priests in Nov. גם בחלומות, גם באורים, גם בנביאים. King Saul tried everything he could. He went to the breastplates, to the Kohen, to the Navi, and no one would give him an answer. Now, just imagine. King Saul, the king of Israel, he knows this is the last battle. That might be the last battle. He wants to know. He wants to know the future. Would I win? Like I won many of the other battles, or I'm going to lose? And it means that only me, it's the entire people of Israel. I am their king. I need to know. God help me, and God does not answer King Saul. This is going to be an example of a person who cannot live with uncertainty. And take a look what he does. ויאמר שאול לעבדיו. So King Saul said to his servants, בקשו לי אשת בעלת אוב. I would like you to try to find a woman who it's called בעלת אוב. It's a woman that can basically talk to the dead and bring them back and ask them questions. ואלכה אליה ואדרשה בה, and I will go to her and I will ask for her opinion to bring me someone from the dead to ask him if I will win or not. ויאמרו עבדיו אליו, so his servants told him, הנה אשת בעלת אוב באין דור. There is a woman like that, a sorcerer type of woman, and she is in that place, אין דור. Now the problem is, as we read in the narrative in the Torah, you are not allowed to have a Ba'alat Ov, a sorcerer like that in the land of Israel. And King Saul made sure that we don't have too many of them. So he can't just show up at her door like the King Saul. She will be terrified. So what does he do? ויתחפש שאול. Shaul basically pretended to be someone who is not the king of Israel. וילבש בגדים אחרים, and he changed his clothes. וילך הוא ושני אנשים עמו. So he went with two other people. ויבואו אל האישה לילה. And they came to that woman in the middle of the night. ויאמר, כסמינה נא לי באוב, ואעלי לי את אשר אומר אלייך. I would like you to please talk to the dead and bring someone from the dead that I would like to speak to him. That's an interesting request. ותאמר האישה אליו, so the woman says to him, not knowing that she's talking to King Saul, because he pretended to be someone else, הנה אתה ידעת את אשר עשה שאול. You know what Saul did. She's talking to Saul, not knowing that that's Saul. By the way, says to you something about her ability predicting the future. She talks to King Saul because he pretended not to be King Saul. She does not recognize him, but she can tell the future. However, at desperate times, people believe in anything. So she says to him, הנה אתה ידעת, you know, את אשר עשה שאול, אשר הכרית את האובות ואת הידעונים מן הארץ, ולמה אתה מתנקש בנפשי להמיתני? She says to him, King Saul made it very clear. He does not tolerate any women like me that can tell the future. So if you come to me and he hears about it, I'm done, I'm finished. So I don't want to do it. Why do you come to me? You put me in danger. וישבע לה שאול בהשם לאמור, חי השם אם יקרח עוון בדבר הזה. Saul still does not reveal his true identity. Says to her, I promise you, nothing will happen. You will be fine. ותאמר האישה, את מי אעלה לך? את מי אעלה לך? So the woman is getting into her work, and she says to this person, who would you like me to bring from the dead so you can communicate with him? ויאמר, את שמואל אעלי לי. Please bring back from the dead Prophet Samuel, who used to be my best friend. Prophet Samuel loved King Saul. He appointed him. He knew how righteous he was, and then he was very disappointed of him and didn't talk to him. And then Prophet Samuel died. King Saul continued to live. ותרא האישה את שמואל, ותזעק בקול גדול, ותאמר האישה אל שאול לאמור, למה רימיתני? ואתה שאול. So the woman brings back Samuel from the dead, and she starts screaming. She says, whoa, 1 second. He is Samuel and you are King Saul. Why did you deceive me? ויאמר לה המלך, אל תראי. So King Saul, who still has no clue that she brought Samuel back from the dead, she said to him, don't be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. מה ראית? What did you see? ותאמר האישה אל שאול, אלוקים ראיתי עולים מן הארץ. I saw a judge. Elokim does not mean only God, but also a judge, comes back from the earth. ויאמר לה, מה תוארו? So King Saul says, how does he look like? ותאמר איש זקן עולה, והוא עוטה מעיל. This is an elderly person who comes back from the dead, and he wears this coat. If you remember from all the stories of Prophet Samuel, his mother, Hannah, made for him a special coat that he would always wear. וידע שאול כי שמואל הוא, ויקוד אפיים ארצה וישתחו. So King Saul knows, this is Samuel, this is the exact description of Prophet Samuel. So he bows down, and he is excited to see Samuel. ויאמר שמואל אל שאול, למה הרגזתני להעלות אותי? Prophet Samuel says to Saul, what are you doing? What did you do? Why did you anger me to bring me from wherever Prophet Samuel was, with obviously assuming Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden? Why did you bring me back here? How can you justify what you did? Leave alone that you violated what the Torah says, but also why do you want to anger me? Why do you bring me back here? ויאמר שאול, צר לי מאוד. King Saul says, I'm under tremendous stress. Everywhere I go, I can't find an answer. צר לי. I'm bitter. I'm sad. I'm desperate. I would not bring you if there was no good reason. ופלישתים נלחמים בי. The Philistines are fighting me. ואלוקים שר מעלי ולא ענני עוד, and God removed his providence from me, and I'm alone. I'm abandoned. ולא ענני עוד גם ביד נביאים, גם בחלומות. And I tried everything. I tried with dreams. I tried to go to prophets. I tried to go to the Urim Tumim, the breastplates, the priest. Nothing. King Saul says to Prophet Samuel, I'm lonely. I'm alone. I'm abandoned. No one wants to talk to me. No one wants to give me any guidance. ואקרא לך להודיעני מה אעשה. So I called you. You were my best friend. You were my teacher. You guided me. So I'm asking you, please guide me. Now, if we pause here for a second, there is a bit of irony in King Saul's requests. Because if you will go a few chapters before, chapter 28, you will see that twice Prophet Samuel gave very clear directions and instructions to King Saul, and King Saul did not follow it. One, the first time Prophet Samuel told King Saul, wait for me until the end of the 7th day when I'll come before you bring sacrifices. And he didn't wait, he did it early in the morning. And the famous story is with Amalek. When Prophet Samuel told him to annihilate Amalek, and King Saul didn't do it. So there is a bit of an irony that King Saul says to Prophet Samuel, please tell me what should I do and I'll do it. But if we really look at what King Saul is asking, he's really asking him, what should I do now? Not only give me a commandment or clear direction, just what am I going to do with myself when I have no venue to try to find the future, my next step? ויאמר שמואל, and Shmuel says to King Saul, ולמה תשאלני? Why would you ask me? והשם שר מעליך, ויהי עריך. Which means, Hashem removed his providence from you. He does not want you. I told you. Prophet Samuel told King Saul, Hashem tore the kingdom from you and he gave it to someone else who is better than you. And that's what he says here. ויעש השם לא כאשר דיבר בידי, ויקרא השם את הממלכה מידיך, ויתנך לרעך לדוד. Hashem took away your kingdom because you angered him. You didn't do what I told you to do. And therefore God gave the kingdom to King David. כאשר לא שמעת בקול השם, because you didn't listen to Hashem. ולא עשית חרון אפו בעמלק, and you didn't annihilate Amalek. על כן הדבר הזה עשה לך השם היום הזה. So therefore, because you didn't listen, so when you want God to listen to you and answer you, God is not going to do it. Measure against measure. However, Prophet Samuel does give a hint to King Saul of what will be the future. ויתן השם גם את ישראל עמך ביד פלישתים. This is one of the saddest verses in Tanakh. King Saul now knows tomorrow you will be defeated. Your army will be destroyed. And the nation of Israel, they will be chased by the Philistines. ויתן השם גם את ישראל עמך ביד פלישתים. You're going to die. ומחר אתה ובניך עמי. גם את מחנה ישראל ייתן השם ביד פלישתים. Total destruction. You will die. Your children will die. Your boys will die. And the nation of Israel will be conquered by the Philistines. This is interesting. Because if we will take a step back and let's try to analyze this story. On one hand, we fully understand King Saul's loneliness and desperation. He has no one to guide him. He has this evil spirit that always haunts him. God is not with him. Prophet Samuel is not with him. He knows that his kingdom is going to go to King David. He's looking for answers. He wants to know what the future holds for him. However, I cannot not ask the question, was he relieved knowing that tomorrow is going to die? For sure. Wouldn't he enjoy not knowing that tomorrow he will die and maybe he will fight in a different way, or maybe he will live his life in a better way? My point that I would like us to think about, and we will discuss it and elaborate it a bit more in a few minutes, is that necessarily true that knowing the future helps? With all the inconvenient and the difficulty in uncertainties, in living in an uncertainty, there might be something good with it. When King Saul heard that he's going to die the next morning, what do you think did he do during the night? I can see two options. trying to maximize every minute, or just doing nothing. Because what should I do? Why should I do anything? Because if I die tomorrow. Let's leave that thought. And let's see the Orach Chaim. The Orach Chaim says, Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha, that you shall be tamim. We translate it as naive, but it is not a good translation. It might be wholesome. פירוש, לפי שציווה עליו בסמוך לבל יעונן ויחשף ולבל ישאל באוב, אמר תמים. פירוש, כלומר, טעם כל הדברים הוא לדעת העתידות ולהתנהג על אשר יורו ולתקן החיסרון כאשר יוכל לעשות. אם תהיה עם השם תמים, תהיה לא יחסר לך דבר ואין מה שיגיד המזל עליך תתקיים לרעה. I will translate in a minute. וזה לך האות אברהם שהתהלך לפני השם, הגם שראה שהמזל עליו שלא יוליד נתהפך וילד. Basically, the Orach Chaim says, look, if you know the future, it basically limits you. In a way, it's almost like a Greek tragedy. Everything is predestined. You know exactly what will happen, you know exactly how it's going to end. So you know what? Why even to bother to change? The idea of not knowing, the idea that tomorrow, to some extent, depends on me. And it's not predestined. And you know what? Even if it is, I don't know it. So therefore, I'm free. I'm free to make choices. I'm free to make my own decisions. I am free to shape my future. This idea we can find in this little essay from Professor Yehoshua Arieli. It appeared in Machshavot. It's a magazine, does not exist anymore, but it was very popular in the 70s and the 80s. And he says the following: האי-ודאות, uncertainty, היא הכוח המניע של החברה המודרנית ומקור האנרגיה שלה. Uncertainty is the engine, the power behind the modern society, and that's the source of its energy. היא מהותית לאידיאלים שלה, it's essential to its ideals, לאינדיבידואליות, to its individualism, ולחירות האדם, and to the people's freedom. היא התנאי ההכרחי לחופש הביטוי. It's an essential condition for the free speech, לחתירה להצטיינות, to try to aspire for being the best, ולצמיחה חומרית, and to some kind of capitalism. היא המרחב ליוזמה חופשית. This is the space for free enterprise, להרפתקת התגליות וההמצאות, for inventions and innovation, להיצבר של ידע, for accumulation of knowledge, ולקדמה מדעית וטכנולוגית, and for technological and scientific advantage and advancement. האי-ודאות, uncertainty, טבועה בתהליך המדיני דמוקרטי. It's imbued in the process, in the democratic process, שבאמצעותו מכוננת החברה את מוסדותיה ומקבלת את החלטותיה. That with it, every society basically establish its institutions and accept its decisions. כל ממשל נבחר, every democratic government, המושתת על הכרעה חופשית של אזרחיה, that it's basically established on free vote of its citizens, ועל יחסים של משא ומתן ושכנוע, and it's based on trying to convince people to vote for me, שם את מבטחו במציאות שטרם התגשמה. You basically put your trust in a reality that was not yet formed. Politicians come and promise you the future. You vote for them not knowing that they will deliver it, perhaps knowing that they are not. הציביליזציה המודרנית הושתתה אם כן על מזיגה ייחודית. So the modern civilization was basically founded on what? On this very delicate interaction and integration between science, שעוצמתו ההיסטורית נובעת מוודאות הממצאים שלו, and science by definition is something clear, specific, defined, in the present. You know exactly what you get. עם לבין צמיחת החירות והשינוי המתמיד. So you have science on one hand, and then you have the movement of change, of unknowing, of uncertainty, שקיומה מותנה בגידול תחום אי הוודאות. Meaning more uncertainty in a way you have, more search for science you have in order to try to secure certainty. מזיגה זו, this integration between science and uncertainty, עשויה להביא אותנו למסקנה חשובה ביותר. It's going to lead us to a very important conclusion. עיקרון האי-קביעות הוא אחד ממאפייני היסוד של הקיום האנושי. This principle of not knowing, it's one of the fundamental characteristics of the human race and its existence. עיקרון זה נמצא ביסוד היחס בין ההווה לעתיד. This principle basically lies between the connection and the association between the present and the future. הוא מהווה את הבסיס לאמונה המושרשת בתודעתנו. It basically gives us the base for the faith that it's imbued in our awareness, שההווה הוא הספירה של חירות האדם. Basically the presence is the sphere of people's freedom, משום שהאי-ודאות משמעותה קיומו של תחום האפשרי, שהוא התנאי לפעולה ושינוי. Because uncertainty means that there is a realm of possibilities that we can get there if we make few changes. So let's talk about this piece, because I think this piece is so relevant to our times and also explains so beautifully the narrative. As I mentioned in the opening statement to this class, people in the 21st century, but I think that it's true with people from the 3rd century and 10th century, we were looking for certainties. We want to know, there is a desire in our lives to know what the future holds for me tomorrow. And therefore, I try to do everything that I can to use science and to advance science so it will help me to plan my day, to know exactly what will be the weather tomorrow, so what should I wear tomorrow, to know exactly when sun set and when suns rise, when exactly the plane will leave and when it land, how much time it will take me to go from point A to point B. Based on that desire, based on that need, science advanced. And we have so many apps on the phone and ways to plan our day to the minute. However, with all the desire for set things, uncertainty is not the enemy. Uncertainty is an engine for innovation. Because if you know that even though I try to plan my day, I'm not against planning your day, but knowing that things can change, and therefore change requires me to be innovative, to be creative, to know how to react to change, to make the right moves, I can better the future. And then again, more uncertainty, it pushes the certainty or the desire for certainty to advance itself. So in a way, what Professor Ariely suggests, which is, I think, brilliant, is that you need to have both. More uncertainty you have, more science you have, and I would also add, more faith you have. I think current times teaches us how much we don't know, how much uncertainty lies in the future, and how much depends on us, on how we're going to shape the future. So if we go back now to the verses, let's see what the Torah says. It's incredible. On one hand, the Torah says, I do not want to find in the midst of the land of Israel, in the midst of the nation of Israel, any people who try to predict the future for you. You should walk with God, knowing that you will not understand few of the things that He will do. Some of them you might understand. There is going to be a lot of gray area. It's going to be many times vague and cloudy. That's where you come in. The uncertainty should push you, should give you some kind of even ambition and motivation to take care of yourself. And then the Torah continues on. It's not that you're going to live your life only with uncertainties. God is going to appoint a prophet. And the prophet will give you hints. The prophet, most of the times, will not really predict the future for you. He will rebuke you for misdeeds. He will try to guide you, to tell you what to do, but he's not going to tell you exactly what will happen tomorrow. The prophet is not someone that you knock on his door and says, okay, am I going to win the lottery tomorrow? He's not going to answer you. Am I going to be successful in my test tomorrow? No, he's not going to answer it to you. Which means the Torah itself already reflected this idea of this integration between knowing, the desire to know, and the uncertainty. As Professor Ariel, he says, this uncertainty is the engine for trying and more and to find some kind of certainty in your life. So we as modern people need to understand it. It's hard, it's challenging to overcome our desire to set the future. And especially us, we know Judaism also and always lived between the three dimensions of time. We are connected to the past, we live the present, and we know that we can shape the future. We know that things change. You read Jewish history, you understand how much uncertainty we lived with, and it also explains the desire to try to know, but it also explains why we were able to survive. Our ability to be able to react to changes, to react to uncertainties, helps us to be a great nation. So, uncertainty is not an enemy. It's an engine for creativity and innovation. Thank you.